The 5 key areas you need to focus on immediately to excel. Hey, my dear, I am leadership development coach Kathy Archer and author of best-selling book, Mastering Confidence. What I know for most women leaders is that at some point in your career, you hit this point, and I know this from experience, where you feel in over your head and you're actually wondering if you have what it takes to lead. You're struggling with confidence, you're lacking that feeling of credibility, all of that kind of stuff. I've been there, I know. And so what I do now is I come back and I give you the tools, both the inner and outer tools, so that you can restore that lost confidence and move from surviving to thriving in both your leadership and life. Today we are talking about how do you excel in leadership and what are the areas you need to focus on to excel. Before we jump into that, I am going to share this into my Confident Women Leaders group. And while I'm doing that, I want to know if you are the type of leader, just type a yes or no in the chat box. Are you the type of leader who wants to excel? Are you that high achiever? You know, maybe the type A personality, that kind of person. That's certainly me. Share to a group. So just put yes if you are a high achiever. And no if you're okay with mediocrity. Okay, I'll share. So we're going to talk in a minute about the 5 key areas you need to focus on to get results immediately so that you can excel in your leadership. Before we get there, I want to tell you that today's session is brought to you by International Coaching Week. Now, if you're not a coach, you may have no idea what coaching really is or what the International Coaching Federation is. But the International Coaching Federation is the organization across the world, international, that certifies coaches and coach training schools. So if you hire a coach, you want to make sure that they are certified through one of the schools that the International Coaching Federation certifies, and that they've been certified through the ICF. So we want to celebrate. There are, I can't remember now, I'm going to mess it up, 8,000 coaches across the world that are certified. And many of those coaches this week, thousands of those coaches this week, are honoring our journey, our dedication to excellence, because I am one of those people who want to be at the top of my profession, which is for me coaching. So we're honoring that by offering you all free coaching. So if you want to get in on a free coaching session, there is a link up in the notes that takes you to my scheduling site. You can schedule a 30-minute call with me, totally free. Bring to it any challenge, issue you're struggling with, and I will coach you on it in honor of this celebration this week for International Coaching Federation, International Coaching Week through the ICF. Okay, so thank you for joining me today to talk about the 5 key areas you need to focus on to immediately excel. Let's talk about that first for a minute. Let's talk about excelling in leadership. My guess is if you're following along with me, you're very similar to me. You do have those high standards. And often it's those high standards that get us into trouble. We start to focus on the results all the time, and we immediately want to get those outcomes, and we want to reach the goals. And I can remember back when I was in leadership position and we were going through accreditation, a review process to make sure we met standards. I wanted to get 100%, right? 70, 80 wasn't good enough. 85 wasn't even good enough. 90 maybe, but I wanted to excel at the cost of my team sometimes, at the cost of my own health sometimes. And so when we're looking at becoming that excellent leader, having those results, being the best we can, there's a lot of things that we need to juggle to make sure that we get there. So again, I noticed somebody just joined me. If you're one of those leaders who wants to be an excellent leader, put yes in the chat box, because I think that many of us, especially those of you coming to these kind of sessions, are wanting to learn and grow and be the best you can. And so today I want to talk about those 5 areas that you want to excel in to be the best you can possibly be. And so the first one is, let me flip my notes so that I'm making sure I'm following along. Okay, the first area you want to focus on is those results. Here's the thing though. Sometimes we're not focusing on the right results for the right reason or in the right way. And so those are 3 things you need to focus on when you're starting to think about Where am I going? What am I doing? You need to create that vision about where you're taking your team. You need to be able to be strategic, right? So you know that you want to have a high standard. You've got to identify that vision of what those goals are, what that standard is, look way out there and create that vision. And then you've got to do that strategically. And in doing that, you have to be somewhat decisive, right? You can't be wishy-washy. You need to be clear. You need to set those targets, and you need to take your team there. Where many of us get stuck in this place, and often as women, because we have been raised to be the nurturers and the caretakers, where some women struggle is we fall back into this complying or pleasing mode. And in that complying or pleasing mode, we sort of go along to get along, or we struggle to make a decision because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, or we don't want to offend anybody. And we're not very decisive because, we want to make sure we've got everything figured out first, and we get that sort of analysis paralysis. But if you want to be the best leader, you have to really do that work that sometimes is uncomfortable, to create that strategy, that vision about where is it we want to go down the road, identify those goals, and really communicate that to your team, focus your resources on that, look at how you're going to achieve that. If this is an area you want to focus on, those are the three things that I started this area with first, are the three things you need to ask yourself. What are the things I'm trying to achieve? How am I trying to get there, and why? So focus on the goals. The why piece is that purpose, that passion. I think sometimes we can achieve things for the wrong reasons because we're competing with somebody else, or because somebody tells us to, without actually stopping to see if that actually makes sense. So ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve? How am I trying to achieve it, and why? So think about when you're trying to do this, again, strategic vision. How many organizations create a strategic vision and then plunk it on the shelf behind them and never look at it again? Have you created goals? Do you review those goals regularly, both for your organization, your team, and yourself? Are you doing performance appraisals regularly so that you're taking your team all together in the direction of that vision? Are your performance appraisals meaningful so that the team is seeing how they're aligned with the bigger purpose and vision? Are you meeting standards? Do you know which standards you're trying to meet? Are you measuring them? Right? That's all of this achieving results. So that's the first one. Again, if you're noticing that you're passive pleasing, holding back, worried about offending others, you're probably not achieving the results you want. And so what you want to do is come back to, what are the goals I want to achieve? How am I going to get there? And what do I need to do that? All right. Systems awareness is the second one. So you've got the goals that you want to achieve. You know where you're going, why you're going there, and how you're going to get there. You've got that strategic vision. But then you need to look at kind of what's going on around the community you serve. Who is it that you serve? What's the legacy your organization is leaving? Are you able to sustain the pace you've got your team at long term so that you can reach that vision? Are you able to keep it up? When you are in the middle of a busy time, that's fine, short term, but you cannot keep that pace long term. And so you've got to be regulating the resources in your team, the energy of your team, the morale of your team, looking at all of that kind of stuff. And what that requires is you to be a systems thinker. So we often create this vision out there, or we get stuck in head down, nose to the grindstone, only putting out fires. And we need to be able to do both and a wider vision. So here's what I mean by that. So you need to lift your head up from the fires, the crisis, the emergencies, the reactionary mode that we're often in. And you need to look around you in the here and now, as well as farther out. So farther out is, maybe I was talking to a client yesterday, and she was talking about opening a new group home, and the building that they were going to perhaps lease or buy, I can't remember which, but is that going to meet your needs long term? Is that going to help you do that? So you got to look at that, right, long term. But as you're thinking about buying a building or the kind of lease you're going to get into, you got to start thinking about how do all of these pieces fit together. If I'm going to invest in starting a new program, putting the time and resources into getting this new program, this new building up to snuff, what is that pulling away from? What other programs need my attention, need the company's focus? How does that all fit with IT and perhaps marketing or HR or the accounting division, right? Everybody's going to talk together. There's all of these different moving pieces, and you've got to have that wider, broader view. And that's what we often forget in leadership. We're like, this is what my team wants. This is the direction we're going. These are the goals we're aiming for. And we get this narrow little focus, head down, nose to the grindstone, we're going there. And yet people are falling off the side of the boat. There's crisis happening over here. We've ticked this team off and there's no communication happening. Well, no wonder we're falling apart, right? So we have to look at that. So there's 3 questions you want to ask yourself here. What's the community I'm serving? And again, think bigger. Sometimes it's, I'm serving the clients that I work with, but sometimes it's about serving the bigger community. So if you are maybe you serve the volunteers in this organization, but maybe that organization is the whole health field, or perhaps the whole field that you're serving in is the whole province that you're working in terms of the volunteer network in the whole province. So think a bigger picture about what's the bigger community I'm serving and what's the impact we're having on that and the legacy we're leaving. How am I supporting the long-term stability of what we're doing? And then how am I connected to the bigger system, right? And so if you find yourself in survival mode, if you find yourself constantly putting out fires, reactionary, you're probably not very good at doing the systems awareness kind of things. And you need to slow down and get that wider, broader perspective. Okay, number 3, relating to others. If you've ever heard people talk about leadership, we often talk about task relationship. And so those 2 things that I just talked about, the achieving results and the systems awareness, are kind of that task focus. What are we getting done? What are we trying to achieve? What's our goals, right? All of that kind of stuff. On the other side of the balance of what you're trying to achieve as a leader, the type of leader you're trying to be, the impact you're trying to have, has to do with relationships. And this 3rd area is all about, are you relating to the people around you, to individuals, to your team, to your organization in a way that grows them and develops them so that you can all achieve those results? That requires you to have that warm, caring relationship with them. It requires you to foster those team relationships and collaboration. It requires you to mentor and develop your staff. And in order to do that, you have to be warm, caring, compassionate, open, in the moment, flexible, all of those things that develop relationships. When we are in critical times, stressed times, we often let the relationship fall to the wayside. And again, we focus primarily on task. We walk in the room, we have our tick boxes and our list of things to do. We march in, have you got this policy done? Have you talked to this person? We have to schedule this meeting. And tick, 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 we get stuff done. And we forget that these are human beings we're talking to, that these are other people who maybe are stressed out too, maybe have some issues going on at home, maybe see a different potential for themselves in the future. There are other people who also have feelings, who also have their own individual goals and desires, and we have to connect to them. And that requires a whole different demeanor that we have to have. It's not just ticking off the things we need to get done, focused on the goals. When you're struggling in the area of relationships and relating to others, you might be controlling or demeaning. You might be, again, that people pleaser where you're just trying to make everybody happy, but you're not really, because everybody's ticked off at you because you won't make a decision. You're maybe being defensive, or you are, pushing that the kind of feelings away and not really connecting to people. Maybe you're being arrogant. Maybe you're discounting other people's questions, words, input. All of that is where you're struggling in relationships. When you want to work on this area, and the thing you need to remember when you're doing this is stop tasking while talking. Let me say that again. Stop tasking while you're talking to someone. And the second part of that is zip your lips and listen more. Those two things. Stop trying to do emails. Stop trying to check your phone. Stop looking over somebody's head and seeing another person in the room. Stop thinking in your brain about the next meeting that's coming up, the things that you've got to get done, and stop and focus on the person in front of you. And then zip your lip and listen to them. If you really want to develop other people, if you really want to help them see their potential, realize their dreams so that they can all help your organization get to that task side, that strategic thinking, that visionary, achieving those goals that you've got to build them up. And you do that by connecting with them. And you cannot connect with them when you're a split personality, when half of you is on email or on the meeting that's coming up and the other half of you is trying to pretend to listen to them. It doesn't work that way. You have to tune in, completely tune into them. And that may only be for a minute or two, may only be for 30 seconds, but if you cannot tune into them, they're not going to feel cared for. They're not going to feel like you've connected with them. They're not going to feel heard. They're not going to feel like their point is valued, and they're not going to contribute to the overall growth and development of your organization. So when you are trying to connect with someone, when you're having a conversation with somebody, stop tasking while talking to them, zip your lip, and listen more. That will help you completely develop those relationships. Okay, number 4. All of that requires you to be authentic. So the 4th area you need to focus on is leading with courageous authenticity. And this is about integrity. Are you walking your talk? Are you being honest? Are you being truthful? Can your team, can the people around you trust you? Can they trust you to walk your talk? Can they trust you to say what the truth is? Can they trust you to back them up? Can they trust you to share the messages that need to be said, even if they're hard messages? Can your team trust you? And that's an incredible skill as a leader. And in fact, one of the biggest things people are looking for in their leaders, the biggest thing actually that people are looking for in their leaders is, are they in integrity? Here's the thing about integrity. You can't decide if you're integrity. You can't decide if people view you that way. That's up to them. But what you can do is choose how you conduct yourself. And the way you conduct yourself, the actions you take, the behaviors you have, the way you talk, the way you email people, the way you run meetings, the way you make people feel will all impact the way people judge your character and whether they believe you're in integrity and whether they trust you. And in order to do that, you have to get connected with who you are authentically. I cannot tell you how many women leaders come to me in coaching in my courses and they feel like they've lost themselves. They don't know who they are anymore. They haven't connected to their values in a long, long time. And often they are so unaligned with those values. They are doing what they think they're supposed to be doing. And quite honestly, they're dying inside. They've lost that sense of who they are. They've lost contact with who they are. And they are just simply doing what they think they're supposed to be doing and what they need to do to survive. Authentic leadership, being integrity, coming back to who you are, requires you to slow down and figure out, what are my values? How do my values show up in my leadership? How do I know when I'm aligned with my values? When do I feel like I'm in integrity? What hill will I die on? What are my morals, my ethics? All of those kinds of things help you identify who you are authentically and how you lead authentically. And that requires an incredible amount of courage, because let me tell you, it is not easy. And this is the place that many women leaders struggle with. They find themselves inauthentically leading. And because they're inauthentically leading, they walk into work every day, they pull up this shield, they put on these masks, they wear this armor so that people can't see the real person inside of them, so that they don't feel hurt every time somebody says something that, you know, knocks a chink out of them, and they lead stiffly. And that's why, I mean, you know, some of the words that people call women leaders, that's why, because they've put this front on so that they can, you know, power through like a man would, or like somebody else would, but not like they would. And so you've got to reconnect with who you are authentically. And that takes a lot of that inner work. So if you want to do this, what you need to do is stop looking for approval, stop waiting to see what everybody else wants you to do. Stop trying to look good and find out who you are and lead from that authentic place. Which brings me to number 5, and probably my favorite, and probably the place that I spend the most time with you ladies, is the self-awareness piece. If you want to achieve results, if you want to have that systems thinking approach, if you want to be able to create those relationships with other people, have that ability to lead with authenticity, you then need to become really, really self-aware. You need to commit to ongoing personal and professional development. You need to commit to growing yourself constantly. I have one lady that I coach, actually a number of ladies that I coach, but one that's in my mind right now, who's constantly listening to audiobooks. On her drive to work in the morning, on her drive home at the end of the day, she is listening to audiobooks. And that's one of the things that I share with you guys regularly. Here are some resources. Here are books that you can read. Yes, you can go to conferences. Yes, you can take big, long training. And on top of that, commit to ongoing daily personal growth. And that is not only intellectual growth. In fact, that's only a small portion of it. The bigger portion is inner growth. If you want to be that good leader, strong leader, compelling leader who's achieving results and feeling good, you have to know when your buttons are going to push. Again, what we talked about a minute ago, what your values are. You need to know what emotions are bubbling up, and you need to manage those emotions. You need to be able to read what's going on in the room and control and manage that, so that your team doesn't have this, you know, big uproarious fight with each other. You need to be able to recognize when somebody's burning out. Remember, we talked a minute ago about sustainable ability, long-term sustainable ability. You need to be able to recognize when somebody's burning out, have that relationship with them, even though that may be hard, so that they can balance their lives. You need to talk to people about their growth and development, and that's not always easy when you're holding them accountable. All of that requires that you grow from the inside out. That's what self-awareness is. Self-awareness is, where am I struggling? What do I want to grow and develop in myself? And how am I going to do that? Commit to that ongoing learning. I've been talking a lot about, I've competed at Toastmasters this weekend, and one of the things that I am working on is developing my communication skills, developing the ability to share a message in a compelling way, in a simple, easy way for you to understand, and in a way that's going to make you listen long-term to me and not get tired of listening to me in about 2 seconds flat. I need to ask for feedback to do that. And so when I am coming back to my Toastmasters group, I'm saying, I want feedback. Tell me what I'm doing well, but also tell me where I need to improve. In our weekly meeting this week, one of the pieces of feedback that I got this weekend when I competed was, I say so. And I'm very aware of that, and I work on it. You can go back and rewatch this video. And now in all of the future videos, you'll be paying attention to this. I say so at the beginning of sentences. And that's not helpful. That's actually just like ums or ands and so you know and like and well. All of those are called filler words. And they, if you've listened to politicians who aren't very good speakers, that's one place you can probably see it. It's annoying to listen to. The word that I have fallen into is using so. So I asked my fellow Toastmasters to count the number of times I said so. In an hour and a half meeting, I said so 22 times, I think. Somebody counted. That's great awareness for me, and that's what self-awareness is. I'm not going to be aware of that if I don't ask somebody else to do it, if I don't maybe turn around and listen to this video today And look at the numbers of so's I said. That's not easy. That's embarrassing. It feels humiliating a little bit. And it's going to take courage for me to do that so that I grow myself. That's what self-awareness is. If you want to know if you're developing this skill, the couple of things you can ask yourself. 1, am I asking for help? Am I asking for feedback? 2, am I doing training? And 3, am I journaling? Mastering Confidence is full of journaling, and it's full of those exercises that help you become more aware of your inner guidance cycle. Pause, ponder, pivot, proceed, so that you can access that inner guidance system, what's going on in your thoughts, your feelings, your body sensations, so that you can manage those emotions when they bubble up in the middle of a meeting, so that you can control your feelings when somebody really irks you and you know that it's probably not a good idea to roll your eyes. That's emotional intelligence, and that's what this is all about. And if that's something you're interested in, then that's piece of the training that you need to do. You need to learn, okay, I struggle with my emotions. I feel like I'm losing my composure, falling apart, or ready to fall apart all the time. Oh, okay. I need to develop some emotional intelligence. Where do I learn that? How do I learn that? How do I grow? That's all about self-awareness. So those are the 5 areas you need to do. The guide sheet today, because you know I always have a guide sheet, is reviewing the skills. If you go to the link up on the side, there's a web page that last year I did 5 sessions. So 20 minutes on each of these in depth. There's a blog post on each of them, and there is a worksheet for you to do. So if you pop on over to the link in the notes, you'll get all of that on one page. You'll get all of the videos linked up, all of the blog posts linked up, all of the guide sheets linked up. And you can also download this if you want. That's all of it in one PDF, so that if you just want to come back to it and work through this, maybe you're going to do this, 15 minutes a day, or perhaps you are going to set aside an hour of training for yourself every week. Great. Here's a great place to take that. Then you can excel in your leadership. Then you'll know that you are focusing on you as a leader, that you're growing yourself. To do this work requires that courageous authenticity to say, I want to excel in my leadership. I want to be the best leader I can be. And it's a little bit uncomfortable. Go grab the download. Start to work through all these videos. Start to work through all of the exercises. If you want to focus specifically on emotional intelligence, growing your confidence, go grab the Mastering Confidence book. The link is up in the notes as well. And if you're interested in doing that, there is a free course inside of Mastering Confidence, so that you get all of the videos and some exercises to do as well. It's when you commit to the lifelong journey of growing yourself, to that creating the type of leader you want to be, that you will excel and feel good at it. It's not just excelling for the point of excelling. It's not just achieving those results without feeling good, because that's when you're going to hang out in survival mode, and that's not where you want to be. You don't want to totally focus on excelling in your leadership at the cost of your health, at the cost of your family, at the cost of your sanity. That's survival mode. You want to move to thriving. Take that time to grow yourself in a more conscious way, so that you're growing a more rounded self. That, my dear, is how you're going to excel and grow and develop. Remember, if you want a free coaching session, there is a link up in the notes. You can book a session with me. Grab the download. Start to work on excelling in leadership a little bit more systematically, a little bit more focused, and intentionally. That's, my dear, how you're going to move from surviving to thriving in both your leadership and your life. Go make the rest of your day awesome.